let's turn that camera on. And they're like, no. And you're like, oh, why not? I don't do video. No, that's not me.
People don't want to interact with a company page as much as they do an individual page.
You nailed it.
I'm old enough to remember when everyone just called people whatever their Instagram handle was. You know, it'd be like, hey, Colby doing work? What's up, man?
Video has always been near and dear to my heart. I freaking love video. I think it's just so personable.
It's like asymmetric warfare. If your competitors and the other people are using press release in the form of a LinkedIn post, because like no one gives a shit about that. If you can build that audience with video, it's truly asymmetric.
The CEO, whether you're on the OEM side or the CM or supplier side, you should be owning that go-to-market strategy anyway.
Founder-led sales, man. I'll beat that drum all day.
Seeing is believing.
But the spotlight effect is everyone's thinking about themselves, but thinks everyone else is thinking about them also. Hey everybody, Spencer Jones here. Welcome to the Medtech Innovation Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, founder at Medtech. With us today, I have someone that I've actually met in person. A couple of the guests that we've had, I hadn't had a chance to meet in person, but I was actually just out with Kyle at MD&M in Anaheim. But really excited to have Kyle on the pod. Kyle Kruse, founder at Missile Productions. Kyle helps the medical device manufacturing industry grow their businesses and drive revenue using video, which is what we're doing right now, right? Video podcast. So Kyle has over 10 years of experience building and executing go-to-market strategies in the med device manufacturing industry. He played a key role in scaling a contract manufacturer from 6 million to 30 million ARR with a very lean budget and lean sales and marketing team. So I know we're going to get into a lot of video stuff today, which is like I'm obviously very passionate about. People think all I do these days is podcasts. But Kyle, welcome to the pod. Where do we find you today?
Spencer, awesome, man. I'm pumped to be here. Thanks so much. And great work with what you're doing over there at Medtech with you and your team. I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn right now. You know, I mean, I think that's the place to be. There's no doubt, especially in our industry. So I am over in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, which is actually right next to a city called New Bedford. And when we were out in Anaheim and we were at the Ranch restaurant, on the menu in the appetizers, you would see scallops from New Bedford. So that's kind of a little claim to fame here. We're spoiled with our seafood, as well as many other things. But yes, I am over here in Dartmouth, Massachusetts.
Scallops. Yeah, I call them scallops. It's like a little ass sound. But yeah. So I know we're going to get into a lot of kind of the ins and outs, but I just want to make sure, like right at the top, like, you know, Missile Productions, right? Like, you know, what is that? How'd you get here? I know a little bit of the story, obviously, but would love if you could just share it with the audience.
Okay, cool. So Missile Productions, I am Kyle Kruse, the Kruse Missile. And as you can tell, I don't need one of those Celsiuses right there that you're drinking because I've got plenty of energy. And that's kind of how I've been known, you know, even all throughout my life is I've always been a very kind of high energy, passionate guy. I try to bring it every single time. And, you know, back in college, I was a hockey player, lacrosse player. My friends would call me the Kruse Missile Rocket, you know, and it was funny because when I started working at Global Interconnect, my former employer, I became buddy with one of the engineers. And he said, hey, you know, come to pickup skate and play some hockey with us. And I said, oh, man, that's awesome. I'm looking for a new place to play. I walk in, a buddy of mine walks in and says, hey, Missile, what's happening? You're skating here? And my colleague looks at me and says, Missile? Right? And I'm like, oh, well, that's what my buddies called me back in college. So I go into the office the next day and he's like, hey, by the way, Kyle's name is actually the Missile. And he tells the story. And so everyone in the office, you know, started joking around, calling me the Missile again. And I thought it was kind of interesting because at that time, I mean, this is going back to now 2015. This is when like personal branding actually started becoming like super popular. So I was like, you know what? This is actually my opportunity. I'm going to be the Missile and I'm going to bring that into my line of professional work, which is a bit dicey because it's quite an edgy type of nickname, but it's totally fitting. And I think everyone sees that. You know, my goal is I brought that name over to my business and, you know, really I want to kind of fire people up. I want to inspire people. I want to do it through video and I want them to be able to really kind of launch their business. Like you're launching a missile, right? This is an opportunity to really launch your brand, launch your business in a whole new way. And video has always been near and dear to my heart. I freaking love video. I think it's just so personable. I think it makes such an impact when people watch that. It's such a difference maker watching a video than listening to something or reading something. So, I said, hey, I see this huge opportunity right now in video. You're seeing it in various aspects of other different markets and industries, but not so much medical device. So I wanted to change that, and that's what I'm doing today.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. The personal branding piece, I'm old enough to remember when I was in college, like Instagram was just starting to be a thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And same with Twitter. And I remember there was like a period of time where everyone just called people whatever their Instagram handle was. It'd be like, hey, Colby doing work. What's up, man? Like, all these different, like whatever your handle was, you know what I mean? I've seen this a lot more with people almost productizing their own brand because it's like an extension of themselves. Like there's this kind of interconnected interwovenness, right? Your LinkedIn survives multiple companies, right? So you need to be producing content that is kind of on your personal mission, like, and the company's mission will benefit from it versus like everything you do has to be just like company man, company line, putting out company stuff. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And do you follow like Peter from Carta by chance?
No.
His name's Peter Walker.
I should. I follow a lot of folks, but yeah.
Well, you should. Honestly, so Carta, it's cap table management software, but, and they don't, honestly, they do some really good video live events, but they just like, they're obviously having a tremendous amount of data on fundraising rounds and valuations and how companies have progressed over the years, et cetera. And Peter just slangs charts and data and insights. Like he's like, I think his title's like head of insights at Carta. But all that to say, he's doing it from his personal account. Everything's branded Carta, but he's just like the guy, right? And it's like you try to do that from the Carta account, like people don't want to interact with a company page as much as they do an individual page, right? And you can help lift the company page with that personal page, right? Repost it. So anyways, I don't know what your take on that is, but like it feels like the productization of people and their audiences is something that like I think is like people that do it and lean into it now are going to win in the near future. Yeah,
you nailed it. I mean, that's exactly right. People, we build relationships with people, not necessarily companies. So I think that's the way. I think we've been seeing that trend. And it's funny, right? Because the old school way of looking at it, especially if you were in leadership, is like, hey, why is my employee out here making all of this content on LinkedIn? What are they doing? How does this help me and my business? How does this help us sell more product? Well, the reality is, try doing that and getting that type of engagement with your LinkedIn page, your company page. It's just not going to happen. And, I saw firsthand, I started talking about, early on when the pandemic hit and it was really hard to get a hold of people. I started just talking about my prospects and their technology. It was almost like I was a glorified promoter in the medical device industry, because I'll be honest with you, I don't have this engineering technical background, which is really important in medical device. So I had to find something that really matched my skill set and my style. And I think this is important for everyone to understand and really kind of try to be super creative and thoughtful and mindful when you're thinking about how you want to build your personal brand and the type of content you want to create, because it's important too that it still ties back to you. So I just started talking about all these companies and their technologies and the problems that they're solving, right? And how they're doing it and what's so special and unique and where you can find them and learn more. And ultimately everything I was saying, it was all on their website. It was published. So it wasn't like I was disclosing anything or saying anything that I shouldn't, but I would make these videos. And next thing I knew, people were sending me messages saying, hey, I saw your video on this. And it was really cool. And in fact, I noticed you work for a company that does this, because it tied back to my LinkedIn. And then on that, they're scrolling through my page and they see, oh, this guy works in the medical device manufacturing industry. What does he do? And they click on my company and they say, oh, their company does this. I actually think they could help us out. And this started to happen, which was amazing, right? And people were connecting the dots and they were like, this person's just super passionate. I want to talk to this guy, and learn more about him. So I was creating creating that inbound there. And I think that was like the key to approaching that kind of personal brand strategy and leveraging. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, by the way, back to the rec league hockey comment or whatever. I used to play softball, like men's league softball, and I had to quit because I got hurt. Like it was like every 6 games or every 5th game or 6. I was averaging like 1.8 injuries a season or something. It was like, and then it was cutting into my golf game. So I was like, all right, screw this. I gotta quit.
Yeah, you need that.
I can't sacrifice the golf game. No, but I think a lot of ways, like you mentioned, there are some kind of like medtech marketing paradoxes, as I call them, right? Where it's like, you know, most industries, you build your product and then sell it as soon as you can, like as soon as it's ready or whatever, right? Well, you sell immediately, right? Relative to like when your product is built. Mm-hmm. But in medtech, like most of the time, there's like a 4 to 5 year gap between when, especially these young companies, right, build their product and then they were able to actually market some indications, right? And I think even with like medical device manufacturers, right, like they're a lot of the times making things for other people. So marketing is a little bit difficult because it's like they're making it for someone. They can't, there's somewhat restricted on them being able to like market the product as if it was their own.
Sure.
So their marketing capabilities, their marketing services, right? And it's a little bit harder to punch through when you're doing that. But when you are using video, I truly believe it's like asymmetric warfare. If your competitors and the other people are using just like basically a press release in the form of a LinkedIn post, because like no one gives a shit about that. And they want it. And like, if you can build that audience with video, it's truly asymmetric. And like, I think the results will pan that out. I mean, are you seeing people be receptive to the video piece? I'm just curious.
I mean, video is hard. It's a daunting task. You know, there are so many brilliant people out there that are so good. When you're like in a meeting or talking one-on-one with them, you're like, wow. Amazing communicator, charismatic, he all has everything. And I'm like, let's turn that camera on. And they're like, no. And you're like, oh, why not? You know, and I don't do video. No, that's not me. Right. And I think it's kind of getting over that hump and that, you know, that first hurdle, if you will. So I think that's a big part of it. But I do want to go back to a comment because you were kind of talking about the OEM side at the beginning, and you were chatting, you were making some comments about that long journey that they have. And then when they get their product to market, there's, you know, even a few years of them building their company, generating revenue, really getting the interest of larger strategics, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the times, and I know that we've even spoken about this in the past, even on our podcast there, the MedTech Impact podcast, right? And you've actually spoken with this with other guests. You talk about companies kind of in the stealth mode, right, too?
Yeah.
And, you know, companies are like, well, what can I say? What can I talk about? The OEMs, right? And I think it's just really important that you're talking about the greater mission, you know, the problems, the current ways that the industries are trying to solve those problems today, and kind of alluding to how you're going to, you know, do it in a different way. And you can still share a lot of great insight without kind of disclosing any proprietary information. But most importantly, what you're doing is you're just simply generating awareness in a far more engaging way. And the more people can see you and hear you and learn about you so that they can take action and go to your LinkedIn, your website to learn more about your technology. Yeah. And then as you're producing those PR posts and the news wire and all that, oh, hey, you know what? I've heard this guy and I've heard this gal and I've listened to them and I know about this problem that they're trying to solve. And it really sounded like they've got this great technology. And now, so doctors, physicians, hospitals, they're ready for it, right? And you want them to be ready for it. So I think that's really important that the OEMs themselves, especially the executive team and that CEO, that the CEO, in my eyes, whether you're on the OEM side or the CM or supplier side, you should be owning that go-to-market strategy anyways, right?
Founder-led sales, man. I'll beat that drum all day.
Let's go. You know, and you're seeing that in tech anyways right now. Like it's super popular right now in a lot of the tech. You got these 30, 40-year-old kind of founders, you know, or CEOs, right, where they know the importance of leading by example. They're the content creators.
Yeah.
They're the brands.
100%. Building an audience around subject matter expertise gives you the ability to not even talk about the thing that you do, just talk about what you know and the field. Yeah. And it like helps with that rule of 7, right? Where someone needs to see your brand or encounter your message 7 times before they'll have enough trust built up to make a purchasing decision, right? It's rule of sevens and mostly consumer stuff, but it applies here as well, right? So like if you can be talking about everything around what you do and then pepper in, right, some content around what you do, right, then it all feels less salesy, but you're building so much more trust with that audience. I saw a video on this the other day, but like the guy was like, I stopped sending just PDF proposals, right? Because you send a PDF proposal and say it's like a $10,000 price tag on it, right? That, somebody gets it that hadn't talked to you before, doesn't really know what you're doing. They just open it up, scroll down to the bottom, see the price. They're like, I don't know, right? And especially I think when you're pitching something that is like brand and marketing and video and strategy around that, all of that, right? This guy was like, I just send a loom. I walk them through the proposal, right? He goes, I try to keep it as short as possible, but that way the thing that they have to share is a 3 or 4 minute video of me. They can see my face. I'm walking them through the proposal that I sent them and really helping them understand the why and the what behind the text on the proposal. You'll get better engagement. You'll get better follow-ups. You're able to see who's actually viewing it, right? How many views it has. And it's like really quick and easy to do. I don't know if you use Loom videos, but it's just so easy. You just shoot it. It immediately grabs a link for you, and then you can toss it to somebody. They can comment and annotate on it. I use them a lot, but they're really, really good. I don't know if have you used Loom at all? Have you dug into it at all?
So not Loom, but I mean, Vidyard was kind of a tool that I would use. Now it's kind of interesting, Spencer, because I came from a part of an industry where, we were dealing with customers at an enterprise level. So if I was going to do business with them, I didn't have a $10,000 proposal. I had a proposal where maybe the entry to that proposal was 10, 20, 30,000 and more, but ultimately they would be dramatically changing their product, right? They're bringing on someone who's going to ultimately change the future of their company organization, even if it is just a cable assembly. So it's a much bigger deal. We would call it quote abyss. If you ever sent a quote to someone, call it, goodbye, bye-bye.
Yeah.
You're never hearing back, quote abyss. But I do like the idea of that, because if you think about it, that video, one, it allows the person, the recipient, to get an understanding of, okay, like, what's this person all about? How do they communicate? Is this someone I can see myself talking to and working with every single day?
Yeah.
But also, a lot of people, they'll get a proposal and they don't exactly know how to sell it internally to their decision-making executive team. So now if you accompany a video, like you've just mentioned, a Loom video with your proposal, it's easier for someone to go, yes, this is exactly what I need. I know we need this as an organization, and they said it perfectly, and it's only 5 minutes. Boom, here you go. The likelihood of them probably sharing that internally is far greater. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, 100%. And just quick shout out to Steve Maxon. I feel like Steve, US Extruders was like very early on video. Cool. And like probably people were like, why is he doing this video thing, whatever. But he's just like killing it. He does such a good job with it. Like, I think he's like a great example of like how in this industry, right? Like when you're doing video the right way, it can like just absolutely crush and like really help your brand. One thing I wanted to ask you about too was in tech, in SaaS, right? You hear a lot about customer acquisition costs, ROAS, right? Return on ad spend.
Yes.
All these things. So like when you were growing Global Interconnect, right? Like how did you think about customer acquisition cost? Like how did you think about like the payback period, the investment? Like how did you quantify that? I'm just curious because it's not like it's important to like get your arms around, but it's more unique, I think, especially in the CDMO side of things.
Yeah, well, especially because at the end of the day, too, I feel like on that, contract manufacturing side that you just mentioned, I think it's okay actually to have a little bit higher customer acquisition cost than tech, because I think that, when you're buying a software subscription and a tool in tech or something like that, sometimes it can be easier to make change in those areas compared to medical device. When you're a contract manufacturer and you go through this elaborate development project and you get that and the OEM brings that product to market, I mean, it's your business to lose at that point.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's because they're not going to want to make changes again. So as long as you've got good quality products, on time deliver, great proactive customer support, competitive pricing, and you're making sure that there's transparency there. You can hold that business and retain it for a lot longer. So, then it makes that customer payback period and all that customer acquisition costs. It makes it a little bit different. Now, when I remember, seeing customer acquisition costs that were, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think that, is kind of, it's been almost normalized in a way in our industry. And I still think that's like incredibly high and a bit obnoxious.
Yeah.
And I think it can be a lot lower. And again, this is kind of why I'm leaning on video. Not that trade shows are a bad thing. I think trade shows are great for getting out there to be able to see someone, but the reality is they don't necessarily help with timing and need. So yeah, you get people that go, oh yeah, I definitely would have a need for this. And maybe once in a while you might strike gold where the timing and need all aligns and all that money you paid on that trade show, it makes sense. But the reality is you're just there kind of just trying to show face and stay in front of these people and show them that you're still in business.
Yeah.
But the video aspect, you can be far more consistent. It's a lot lower cost. You're staying in front of people. You're staying top of mind. You're educating. You're sharing insights every day that's valuable to your target customer, your ideal customer.
Yeah.
And that's where you see, that those low customer acquisition costs and even lower payback periods. So,
yeah,
that's why I really like video there. Yeah.
No, 100%. Look, trade shows are fun. I get it. Like, I get why people still do them. You get out of the office, you go to a cool city, eat some good food, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, if you really like fundamentally think about it in terms of like, what does it actually cost to go throw this 10 by 20 booth, fly all your people out there, all of this stuff? It's like $100,000 or more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And talking about like, okay, it's like a lot of people looking for projects and companies to work with, but like, there's a lot fewer companies that are looking for their vendors there because of the timing and need thing that you talked about, right?
Yeah.
And if you really think about it, it's like, okay, this trade show is 3 days of a year. So that's like, hey, I want to catch customers all year, but I'm going to go fishing for these little 3-day spurts that are crazy expensive versus with video content and being consistent with it, you can have kind of your bobber in the water. And whenever that person stumbles across it and has that nice timing and good fit, they're going to see it and they're going to bite the hook, right? Versus like spear fishing three days out of the year at a conference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's two things I want to call out before we move on. Like the customer acquisition cost, if you're not putting it next to the, LTV, long-term value of the customer, right? It's kind of a worthless metric because the long-term value of a customer is so high in this medtech OEM, CDMO, CM world. And then the other part is the switching cost, right? Like the switching cost to switch to another vendor is so much higher than like if you want to switch to a different software provider, right? And I think software, as it gets more ingrained, does get sticky, especially with like enterprise solutions. If you look at like EHRs for hospital systems and stuff like that, right? That's great. It's like 2 years of switching costs, right? But I think it's your business to lose, right? Because with a high long-term value, with an incredibly painful and expensive switching cost, customer acquisition cost is a little bit higher, but you can lower that drastically even still, right? And kind of like increase your luck surface area, as we like to say at XO, right? By having that like bobber in the water for longer.
Those pain points you just mentioned, the customer's pain points, the OEM's pain points of spending all that time, effort, and money. Yeah. This is why video is so important. These people are taking more time than ever to make a decision, and they've got all the resources at their disposal. They can find everything, they can learn everything they want on their own. They don't have to engage anyone. And for the most part, it's not like something comes up at a medical device OEM. They say, oh, we need to go find a supplier. No. They know exactly who they're working with. And if you're not top of mind, and if you haven't done what you need to do to really earn their trust, right, where they're going to bring you in on that RFQ. And when I say RFQ, I mean really a more collaborative engagement, right? Not just, hey, give us a quote and a price, but here, let's have several meetings, and let's really figure out how we can work together. You're getting a seat at that table if you're top of mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. If I'm going to buy a house, right, I'm making a big investment, right? I'm putting my future for however many years. It's a lot of the same and a lot of similarities to like, hey, I'm picking a CM or a CDMO, right? Like this is going to be a long-term relationship. This is like a marriage. I'm going to be with you for a long time. It matters what the inside of your place looks like. If I'm on Zillow, I want to see pictures of every room. I want to see a video walkthrough. of that place, right? You do it once, right? That house, the owner can do it once, and then it lives for a very long time. I so rarely see like in depth, like, here's our layout. Here's a video of us walking through the facility. Let me explain to you what this room is like and these operator stations. Once you meet the operator, Sally and Jeff, right? They're on our UV bonding, whatever. I have no idea why people don't do it. It's just like, well, let me go take a couple shots that are from an awkward backwards angle of this person at an operator station assembling a device. No one knows what's going on, right? I just don't understand why. I mean, is that part of like what you're like encouraging people to do? Because I feel like it would be such an unfair advantage if they had even just a couple little videos like that.
Yeah. You know, it's like, that's almost like the first step too. That's that's a crazy part, is you're so spot on. That is literally the first step. I always say, seeing is believing. Yeah. You know, it's like, hello. And, you know, to your point about the whole real estate example, same thing goes for a financial advisor. I'm going to give you, you know, the money that I make for the rest of my life for you to invest it and create some wealth for my kids and my grandchildren and so on, right? You want to make sure you're working with someone who knows what they're doing. But yeah, going back to the manufacturing facilities. Now, some folks, they say, well, we've got a real proprietary assembly line. We've got proprietary equipment and manufacturing capabilities, which I get and understand. But guys, if we're ripping a drone through that facility, you know, and there's no close-ups here. There's no explanation. You know, you're just seeing it, right? That's enough. Like, that works really, really well. People are going to say, whoa, that's an impressive setup. And then, you know, what does every CDMO and contract manufacturer that doesn't have real IP or anything proprietary, they all got the same. So they all say, well, our people is what make us special. If your people make you so special, put them on camera and let the world see them, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%, dude. 100%. I mean, I see that with medtech companies, startups and stuff, or like mid-stage companies where they just think everyone's just trying to steal everything they're doing. It exists with CMs and CDMOs, right? But I feel like that is like spotlight effect that people all have personally, that is just kind of like matriculating into their business and how they view it. And like, what I mean by spotlight effect, it's like this phenomenon of, you think everyone's thinking about you and worried about what you're doing, even to a point where they're trying to copy what you're doing and steal what you're doing because you're doing it so well. No one's thinking about you. No one cares.
No.
Like,
it's time for that.
Everyone's thinking about themselves, right?
Yeah.
But the spotlight effect is everyone's thinking about themselves, but thinks everyone else is thinking about them also. Yeah. And it's not the case. You know what I mean? And I think, like, I don't know, this I've kind of had this, like, you know, realization too, where, like, you know, you'll meet someone and then like they'll barely remember it, or you'll send someone something and they'll act like they've never seen it before or whatever. So it's just like, if once you kind of break out of that and you're like, look, like it's a miracle to get someone to care about something and remember it. Like, you think that they're going to be dissecting a drone fly through video to try to see how we're doing this thin wall extrusion? Like, get out of here. You know what I mean? It's crazy talk. Like, do you hear yourself? Like, they're not going to be able to pick up anything proprietary from a walkthrough video. You know what I mean? Right. Anyways, I'm just, I get heated about that because it's like stifles people's growth so much that they just like don't want to talk about what they're doing or show their work. You know what I mean? So video is like a broad thing, right? So we talked about walkthroughs, showing the facility, showing the people, right? Letting them kind of like hear from the people that work there. That's step one, as you said. What kind of in your offering Missile, like what do you see as like kind of the step two, the step three in that kind of maturation of their video presence?
So, you know, I think from a lowest hanging fruit standpoint, you know, they've got all these great blog posts and white papers and capabilities on their website. I think having someone that's, you know, technically inclined, that's responsible for that part of the business, say it's extrusion, say it's molding, you really want them creating insights, right? And talking about extrusion techniques, molding processes, you know, machining, right? What have you? Because again, I think that while the company and the person delivering that information would say, oh my gosh, this stuff is so obvious. Yeah, to you, it's obvious. To your business, it's obvious. It's what you do every day. To your customer, it's not that obvious because they don't mold and extrude every day, right? And so to them, that's them learning, and it's easy content for you to create, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what also shows that, hey, these guys, these people, they understand what they're doing over there. You know, they're clearly experts in this space, right? So I think kind of starting there is a really important part of that.
Yeah, that's it's so true. I mean, I want to give another shout out here, Jim Duncan at Remedy Medical. They do or Jim does design and development for like orthopedic instruments, implants, like you name it, right? But I was like banging on him because I've worked with him on a number of different projects, and the dude is just like wizard brilliant design engineer. You know what I mean? Like he get like watching him work and like work live in a CAD model, it is, you know, like you feel closer to God when you're watching it because it's just like so brilliant. And I was like, Jim, you have to figure out a way to like capture this and then put it out there into the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he put out a video the other day, and it was like, you know, really simple, where it was like, you know, hey, like instead of gun drilling a tube, which, you know, sometimes is the right call, but sometimes it can be more expensive to like gun drill bar stock to get like, you know, a tube. He was basically saying you can, especially if you're needing flushability, you can come in and like drill this side and then like have these kind of cutouts, almost like if you can see here, right? These cutouts on a tube.
Yeah.
You can like drill them corresponding, right? Where they're offset. And then you don't have to, in the same way, like gun drill it. You can kind of go on each side and you're creating that hollowing effect or whatever.
Right.
But anyways, it was just, he made like a 90-second, 2-minute video of like him talking through his strategy for that and like in a CAD model, and he's narrating and everything. And I was like, dude, this is brilliant. And then he texted me, he was like, yeah, you know, a lot of people probably know this technique. And I was like, Jim, 99% of people that are going to be watching this do not know the technique. And then I said, for the 1% that do, you're going to get like a tip of the cap. Like, yeah, that's a great technique. I use that too. And you're going to even build affinity and trust with them as well. So like, you know, kind of small epiphanies, right? And learnings.
Yeah.
Sometimes they happen on a team meeting. Sometimes they happen when you're in your office and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize this. Like capturing and bottling those insights and then turning them into short form video. It's definitely like a skill. It's a lens that you have to kind of put on monocle style here and like be like going through your work, be like, oh, wow, that was an interesting insight. I should like kind of put that to the side and shoot a video later, right? Like,
yeah.
But you do that, and you have enough people at your company doing that, and then like you said, one person that's like technically in charge of like making sure that video production goes well. My goodness, dude!
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have like such compelling content that is going to be like building brand trust and flexing your expertise muscle.
And the people watching, right, you might think, right, as the creator of that video, it's like, well, if I give away this tip or something too, if you do think it is special, right, and you're afraid to give it away because you're afraid they're going to take that and go back to their other supplier and partner, the reality is let them. You know, let them. If they're going to do that, who cares? You know, it doesn't matter anyways. They were going to do it no matter what. But two, they're going to remember where that tip and that insight came from. And when anyone else they go to falls on their face because they just, oh, well, yeah, sure, I guess we can try that and do that too. And they can't, or they don't have that knowledge that Jim has, you know, they're gonna remember where it came from. And I don't think a lot of people actually even work like that. You know, I've got a lot of faith in humanity where people actually listen, they hear something new from someone and they go, whoa, this person knows, I'm going to respect that person. I'm going to keep listening to them. And in fact, you know what? I'm going to reach out to them because I want to talk more. I want to learn more about this, right? Clearly they're the expert. That's what's really going to happen. It's not what you think someone's going to steal your stuff and go somewhere, because that's not going to happen either.
Well, yeah, no, 100% agree. And like evolving this point out a bit, like use video to express some like expertise like that, and then create a lead magnet, right? And then like kind of market that lead magnet. And it could be like, you know, in Jim's instance, he could be like, yeah, and if you're curious about specifically how I did this, like I'm going to drop a link, you know, DM me gun drill, whatever. And I'm going to drop a link to the solid part file in SolidWorks where you can see exactly how I did this, right? Cool. And then what happens there? They have to send him their email or put in their email for them to get it. And then all of a sudden he's got people that are interested in this or whatever. Even if he doesn't capture the email, right? Like you're still kind of like providing something of value, and like you're never going to go wrong just like providing value for a ton of people. That's always going to be good for your business, right?
Yeah.
Because people want value, right? That kind of mutually beneficial exchange of value there. So I'm curious too, I've used video to train sales reps, right? I've used video to try to shorten the sales cycle, kind of like, what are some of the other ways? I know we kind of talked about number one, kind of number two, anything else like, and maybe like, here's some of the opportunities that you see for helping kind of tackle issues with video for these businesses that you work with.
Yeah, it's interesting because I almost think that when you create a video, no matter what the goal is of that video, it's always going to actually help you in other ways that you're really not thinking of, right? So yeah, I think, onboarding, I think of training, I think of just internal communication at large organizations. Do you want to receive a written memo from your CEO? No, you want to receive a video that shows him in his real self or herself, like all fired up, excited, passionate, right? Like delivering that energy and inspiring these people, right? So that internal communication. Now, the thing is the organizations, and I found this out firsthand, right? Recruiting and hiring people. What happens is when you're out there creating video and you're sharing your insights and people are seeing you as this industry leader, thought leader, expert, they want to work for you, right? Yeah. They see how passionate you are. They see how committed you are. They see how knowledgeable, and they're like, I would love to work for someone like this or with someone like this at a company like that. Right. And what happens is when all of a sudden you post an opening at your company, that inbox gets flooded with, hey, I saw there's an opening. I'm really interested. Next thing you know, you've got this giant pool of candidates that you can choose from. And no offense to recruiters, I love them. Right. But the reality is you could save a lot of money and you could fill that role a lot faster, by creating video content. So I see there being just so many benefits to video, really.
Yeah, I constantly thinking of ways to use it, like just internally as well. I saw a clip the other day, and it was this executive, I forget which company he worked at, but he was like, I cut out like these, like he was like, I tried to cut out meetings as much as possible, and I would just tell people like, hey, like send me a 5-minute loom or whatever. Instead of us having like a 30-minute meeting, just send me a loom, whether it's 5 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever, but he can watch that on his own time. You can watch it at 1.25 or 1.5 speed, which I love doing, right? And then you can comment and annotate in that loom live. And like, I'm kind of big on this, just like compounding efficiencies where you do something like that. Oh, maybe you save 30 minutes that week. Great. Right. And then you use some AI workflow and you turn to 5-hour thing that you have to do once a month into a 45-minute thing or 30-minute thing. Right. And you just like, if you keep compounding those efficiencies, like you can grow your overall business's productivity substantially without increasing the headcount. Right. And if you've got everybody in your organization trying to do that as well, my goodness, man, like you're organically grow like productivity and the amount of customers you can engage with and reach, right? And speak to without having to just like balloon your head count. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
But the talent piece is really interesting too, because especially if you're in a marketing or business development or sales role, right? Like you winning people over is kind of the biggest thing, right? Like you have to make them want to work with you. You have to build trust with them or whatever. So like, if you're thinking about your portfolio, right? Like you're sending a resume, why wouldn't you send either part of like a QR code on it or alongside it or whatever,
right?
Some elements of video where you're showing, because like you're going to be on Zoom a lot of the time. How about you show them what it's like to communicate with you over Zoom, right? Before they even see, maybe even schedule that first interview, right?
Yes.
Kind of like that video sales letter, video portfolio approach.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that would be great. I always tell people to attach a portfolio to their resume, but this is almost making me think like the video, having a video element to it as well. It's
good. Interesting. I met this amazing development engineer, and we're still batting around the idea of it, right? But I think there could be even now some companies or that are developing a platform like this. But if I'm looking for talent, to your point, I want to see them in action. I want to hear them, right? And so, I would encourage everyone to be recording themselves or leveraging those recorded Zoom Teams meetings of you talking internally with your team, externally with customers, and obviously making sure that, you have their permission, realizing and that you're not sharing anything proprietary, but doing it in a mindful way, because you're right. I think that a lot of people that are going to hire folks, they want to see people doing the work. They want to see them, in action, to your point. So I think I would agree there's huge opportunity there as well.
No, for sure. One thing we didn't talk about, and we're getting close to time here, I know, but one thing we didn't talk about, because it's almost kind of understood these days, is that the algorithms just like love video. They want video. Yeah. They love video.
Yep.
And I think a lot of the conversation of video in medtech is still like pretty elementary. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know like a lot of this was a little bit elementary for the video piece, but like, we may have to do another one, Kyle, because there's a lot around, LinkedIn's like vertical video scroll, like Reels or TikTok style.
Yes.
And like the concept of like, okay, now that you're making video, let's take it to like, level 2 here and be like, are you making it in various formats? You know what I mean? And like, do you have your 16:9 frame, right? Or your square or your vertical that can be used? Because if you upload videos on Facebook, they're going to try to, they want you to have it in like vertical, rectangle, square, and horizontal, right? And have all 3 of those. It's like you got to take it step by step. But like once you really start to do that, I'm telling you, like, you'll be like, man, we put that video out 6 months ago, and I just had somebody like, I can see the attribution from where they came in, and it was off of that video, right?
Right.
Again, just the bobbers in the water all over the place, right?
Yeah. Well, you're right. We do have to do strategy and creation distribution, right? We definitely need to get into that. But you're right. It's important. You've just got to start with the basics. You got to keep it simple, right? You got to understand that there's this opportunity out there. And, to that point, it's not just LinkedIn. You got to think about AI today. Like when you go to AI and you go to like try to learn something or figure something out, people are using that as their search engine. Right. So AI is right now prioritizing video, especially from YouTube. YouTube is a broadcasting channel. YouTube is actually the home of now where like it's the most popular place to go and watch and listen to podcasts. YouTube.
Yeah.
Guys, be on YouTube because it's only going to help with the SEO. Right. It's only going to help with when people are doing these AI searches, making sure that your company, your brand is popping up. Right. And people can find you. And, as we kind of go out, I want to go out on this note. Right. And I want people to think and keep this all in mind. I'm 38 years old. When I was in middle school, I remember running home and saying, Mom, Dad, did the AOL CD-ROM come in? And they'd be like, oh, they'd sift through the mail. It's right here. And I'd grab that thing and I'd be like, oh, and I'd run over to the computer. I'd pop it in there. I'd download 120 minutes of, internet web surfing, browsing bliss, right? I had my AOL Instant Messenger. You've got to realize that we are now the people that we're in these decision-making roles. We're in these roles, and everyone coming after us, they grew up with the internet. They grew up with social media. They've got all these tools at their disposal, and nothing against the boomers and everyone, before the millennials that are in these leadership roles, but they were not like, you've got to realize that up until the late 90s, like you would go to the library, you would read newspapers and magazines.
Britannica Encyclopedia, man.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that's not the case anymore. It's not. And there's so much out there and people can find and learn so much on their own. And if you're not putting yourself out there and if you're not matching what they grew up with, their habits, right?
Yeah.
How they're used to doing research and learning and finding stuff out on their own, you're going to get left in the dust.
No, 100%. Last thing I'll say on this, it's like with all the automations, right? And these lists and all these ways to find people, like there's been almost like a spamification where it's like you're getting 12 emails from God knows who, and none of them actually sent it. Your list name was plugged into a thing, and it's like, you can always tell it's like, hey, so-and-so, or hey, Spencer, I really love what you guys are doing at so-and-so LLC. No one talks like that.
Yeah,
like,
no.
But AI's getting better, but you know what the one way to cut through that spamification is? With video.
Right.
Show them your face. Talk to them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the uncanny valley of text emails, right? Just like written emails is narrowing the gap to where you can't distinguish.
Right.
But video is still not there. The audio narration is still not there. It's getting really close, but even still, I think that's like we've got an innate better ability to pick that out. So Kyle, last thing, we're going to put your LinkedIn, link to Missile Productions, all of that in the show notes so people can find you there. Anything else before we break, that you want to plug, anything like that? No.
I would just say that, if you're, a CDMO or a contract manufacturer, even on the OEM side, I mean, if you're someone, you're a company or a team that's just not leveraging video, but obviously you're really eager to figure out how you can start doing it, let's just have a conversation and call me on my cell phone. It's 508-566-1551. Let's talk about it, right? And you can connect with me on LinkedIn and you can follow me. I'm trying to post content every day. I'm all about the why is very important, but the how, right? And the what is also important. And I try to share a bunch of insights there. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. But yeah, let's start making more video.
Awesome. Excellent. Kyle, as always, it was a pleasure talking to you. We're going to have to do this one again and kind of go level 2 on video strategy. But thank you so much for joining me on the pod. Everybody that hung around this long, thank you for tuning in. And thanks, Kyle. Hope everyone has a great day. See ya.
Thanks, Spencer.